Welcome everybody to another episode of Rant and Pray. I am joined today by Leon Diop. Did I say it
Sorry,
right?
after you did indeed, but as I went to wave, I knocked my copybook over with some of my notes.
Oh,
Um,
that's okay. I do
yeah,
I do stuff like that all the
no problem.
time.
Slightly embarrassing. I'm gonna keep the notebook out of harm's way. We can take it from there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. But thank you so much for joining me today.
Of
Leon
course.
is part of the Black and Irish page on Instagram. If you haven't seen that page and Facebook as well, you
hmm
guys have blown up over the last few months.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
did
it's
you
been a journey.
expect this to happen? Like, did you?
Not as much as it has, or as quickly as it has. I
Yeah,
mean, it did just take off. Similar to your own podcast, like after the death of George Floyd, we wanted to really, start a conversation, and that conversation just took off.
yeah.
So yeah, we were like, it's been an incredible journey so far, though.
Yeah, I know. And I've had the privilege of being featured on your page.
Of
So thank you for
course, no problem.
featuring my story. And I found that reading other people's stories on that um, made me feel like I wasn't alone. Have you
Yeah,
found that for yourself or?
yeah, absolutely. We wanted to show that, people, while everyone is unique, a lot of the experiences for the Black community are the same in Ireland,
Yeah,
in terms of some of the, negative experiences that they face, but also like some of the positive and uplifting things that they face as well.
hmm,
So yeah, we wanted to show that people weren't alone in any struggles that they may face, that other people were going through it too,
yeah,
and that they and so they didn't feel alone,
yeah.
and that they were the only people that were experiencing this.
Yeah, and you definitely did that for me because I feel like for a long time I couldn't talk about my experiences,
Sure.
couldn't really talk about them at home. I guess because my parents didn't know how to deal with them, but also I couldn't talk about them to my friends. And then this year, George Floyd happens,
Mm,
and I think every single Black person, well, and white people as well, but every single
yeah,
Black person on the planet is like, wait, what?
I agree fully. I think Black people just said, you know what, enough
Yeah,
of this. Like, this is, I'm so sick of this. I'm so tired of it.
yeah,
Feeling like a second class citizen.
yeah,
I'm gonna speak out, and make sure that I'm heard. And
yeah,
I think people are really listening now.
yeah,
And it's just it's unfortunate that something like that had to happen
yeah.
for us to be able to kind of, you know get our voices heard on a deeper level.
Hmm.
But it's we're being listened to now, so it's
Yeah.
important that we talk.
Yeah, and it's amazing because a lot of the comments on my story on your page actually
Mm,
came from white people, white
mm,
Irish people who were very appalled and couldn't
yeah,
believe, the stuff that I said had happened to me. And yesterday I did a little rant on Instagram um, about a white man who just really intimidated me. And a lot of the comments there as well were from white people,
yeah,
white Irish people who are just like, no, like this has to stop happening. So
yeah.
I'm grateful to you, grateful to the Black and Irish page, and for everyone, anyone doing the work and being anti-racist. Um,
Brilliant.
so tell us about yourself, Leon. I want to hear your
Sure.
story.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't necessarily know where to start.
Just
I
start
suppose I'll
from the day
go
you
back
were
to
born.
from the beginning. Yeah. So, I was born in Dublin
Hmm.
to two parents, like every other human being. But my mother was a white Irish Catholic person,
Hmm.
and my dad was a Black Senegalese Muslim person. So
Okay.
my household was quite mixed in my early years growing up. Um, I from my early days, I never really identified with either Black people or white people.
Hmm.
My mum told me a story before of how I came home from school and said, "Oh, there's loads of white people. There's a couple of Black people, but I'm the only brown person." Um, so I think I always knew that there was something different in
Yeah.
terms of being mixed race and not being fully white or fully Black.
Hmm.
Um, I suppose the majority of my childhood was pleasant. in that, you know, I didn't face racism on a daily basis. I wasn't necessarily heavily bullied in school. I did have a couple of incidents that were quite um unpleasant, but the majority of my experience growing up was pleasant.
Good.
Um, some of the racism I would have faced in my younger years would have been just quite overt racism. You know, people saying slurs. You know, I like had been beaten up a couple of times, but
Oh no.
um, that, that only mainly one really bad time. But there was a couple of, and I suppose there would have been a few threats of violence as well. Just based on my skin tone. But um, when I started moving through my teenage years, again, a couple of incidents in school, one or two incidents in sports as well, like playing GAA, playing soccer for the school. Like I would have seen a couple of more incidents of overt racism.
Mm-hmm.
But then as I started like maturing, getting into college and stuff like that, that's when racism would have become, I suppose, less overt
Overt.
and more covert, more
Yeah.
like subtle,
Yeah.
more, you know, microaggressions, more digs and stuff like that. You
Yeah.
know, um, I noticed when I walked into shops, I got my own personal security guard to make
Yeah.
sure that I was safe at all times,
Yeah.
but also there to make sure that I wasn't stealing anything.
Yeah.
Um, you know, which was, you know, not wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I suppose one of my main incidents then would have been with when I was traveling on the Luas before, and myself and my brother were coming home from town. I was sitting towards the back of the tram with my brother, and as we pulled into Red Cow Lewis, a number of young black men started coming down towards the back of the Lewis
Yeah.
and alighted the tram and got off. And at the same time, two security guards um, got on at the same time and just like, you know, converged on me and my brother,
Yeah.
and were like, "Let us see your tickets." And like, these weren't ticket inspectors.
Yeah.
So like I kind of seen what was going on. The
Yeah.
young black kids were maybe trying to avoid them, and these two security guys, they didn't check anyone else on the tram, came straight over
Just
to me
you
and my
two.
brother. And I remember saying to him, like, "Look, this is slightly racially profiling. Like, it's not fair what you're doing." And he was like, "Oh, how is it?" Like, do you know what I mean? He turns on his body camera and was like, "How is it racial profiling?" And I explained to him, I was like, "Look, just because you see other young black people maybe not
Yeah.
paying for tickets or causing problems, you know, you're coming straight over to me and my brother, and you're like asking us for tickets, and you're not asking anyone else." Um, and it gets to a point where he says, "All right," and then I was talking to him in a calm manner.
Yeah.
I wasn't aggressive. I was just saying what he was doing was unfair.
Yeah.
He then asked me, because he didn't like my attitude,
Yeah.
to step off the tram, even though I had a ticket. And I was like, "What? Are you
And had
serious?"
you
Like,
showed him your
I'd
ticket at
shown him
this?
my ticket. I'd shown him the ticket and everything. So basically, what happened was his partner then realized that he was crossing a line
Yeah.
and was like, "Look, you know, uh, sit down, say nothing else,
Yeah.
and we'll let you stay on the tram." And it was quite crap, because then
We'll
they
let you
stayed,
stay on the
they
tram.
didn't
On
go
the
anywhere
tram.
else. They stayed literally standing across the tram from me and my brother. Now, of course, you know, they're, you know, like, um they're entitled to stand wherever they like or whatever. But it was
Yeah.
just like, it was obvious. Like, to me, it was obvious that, you know, they were just standing there. It was making us look like we were trouble when we hadn't done anything wrong. And one of the security guards said, "All right, I'll tell you, the reason why we're checking you is because those other kids didn't have, didn't have passes or whatever, or that they were putting them off at different stops." And I was just like, like, you can't do that. Like, do you know what I mean? You can't go up and say, and like, it came out in the courts then that, you
Yeah.
know, oh, they had this system where if someone describes someone over a radio system, that they just go and check people who are similar. So if it's a middle-aged white woman, apparently they would go and, you know, pat down every middle-aged white woman on a tram, which everyone knows in their right mind,
Never happens.
it would never ever in a million years happen.
Yeah.
Um, so that ended up going to the courts, because I wasn't having it. Like, you know what I mean? I made a complaint to the Lewis. The Lewis were just like, "Yeah, we see that it didn't end amicably, you know, but, you know, we brought the two security guards in and we investigated it, and we're not going to take this any further."
Of
I was
course
like, "Right,
not.
well, I'm going to take this further then." You know, all I wanted was an apology.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it, like, basically what the security guards did was say that I started calling them a racist before they came over to me, which was a blatant lie. It was fabricated, you know. So we got into the circuit court, we got up on the stand, and I gave my case, the security guard gave their case, and we were in there for maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And the judge was like, I I'm going to dismiss his case because he didn't feel that there was enough wrong there. Now all of this was caught on footage, everything, and he looked. The judge looked at me when he was making his deliberations and was like, "You're probably going to want to appeal this," because I think he knew himself. It was like, I think for me, he didn't want to touch it with a barge pole. Like he didn't like when, as soon as I mentioned that, like, look, it was racial profiling what they were doing. It was kind of like, oh, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I don't really want to be getting into this.
Yeah.
That's how it came across to me, anyways. Of course, I appealed it. There was never any doubt in my mind that I was going to.
Yeah.
So it went up to the High Court then, and we went back in. The Luas brought in special counsel, so I was going up against one of the more senior barristers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I stated my case. I was like, look, what happened was wrong. It wasn't fair.
Yeah.
What they did, it was humiliating, and to be told to step off a tram because they didn't like an attitude.
Yeah.
You know, and they say the case again that I was calling them a racist before they came over to me, and we went through the footage second by second,
Yeah.
and it showed that I didn't say a word to them. They just
Yeah.
came over they converged on
Yeah.
me and my brother. So I was found to be in the right. They had to pay nominal fees for defamation, and I got my court expenses as well. So that was a nice win on my part. But like
You
all I wanted,
was an
was them
apology.
to say that what they did was wrong,
Yeah.
and that they realized that, and that they were sorry, and that they
Yeah.
shouldn't have came over to me and my brother just on the basis that we were of the same skin tone
Yeah.
to the other
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Because, like, so you were born in Tallaght. I
Yeah,
spent most of my life in Tallaght.
yeah,
Like, so many white kids in Tallaght give the police a hard time, the
yeah,
Lewis a hard time, like, and yet they don't profile them.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Um, so, but I'm really proud of you. I just think it's amazing that you pursued it and you kept fighting for what you believed was right.
yeah,
Because a lot of Black people, we just kind of like just recoil and we don't really fight because we have been told not to fight the hand that feeds us, you know.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just that kind of colonial mentality where you never stand up to white people, you never, you
Mm,
know. I've had people in my family um tell me, because I'm quite vocal about racism and things like that, you know,
yeah,
and they're just like, you never speak up against white people, you know, anything could happen to you. And I'm just
yeah.
like, but if I don't speak up, you know, and if
Who
other
will?
people don't speak up, like what's gonna happen, you
Nothing. Yeah,
know?
nothing will change if we all just sit back and let this stuff happen. And I think there is more of an outrage now, and you know, I think a lot of people are starting to stand up for themselves and say enough. Like I'm not
Yeah.
dealing with this crap anymore. I don't care if they're in a position of authority. They can't treat
Yeah.
me that way because I'm a human being and
Yeah.
I have rights to be
Yeah.
treated with respect.
Yeah.
You know, so it's good. I definitely think that it's good that more people are standing up for themselves,
Yeah.
are speaking up for themselves,
Yeah.
and that others are standing up for others as well. So like,
Yes.
you know, that people are looking at a scenario and saying, you know what, actually, how that person is treating that person isn't right,
Yeah.
and I'm going to stand up for that person.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of, you know, allyship and really helping out your
Yeah.
fellow human being. You know,
Yeah.
so I think that's a really positive thing.
Yeah. And like so a friend of mine sent me a video of a woman being overtly racist on the bus. It
Mm.
was probably the 7 to 7 bus. I don't know if it still exists.
Maybe. Probably was.
But there and another younger white woman stood up and she says, you know, that's disgusting. You shouldn't be talking to them like that. And I
Yeah,
was like, where was she when I needed someone to stand up for
exactly. Yeah,
me? But
you'd
I'm
love that.
really
Yeah,
happy that it's happening now, you know.
yeah,
Even though I always felt like I had to either stand up for myself or get off the bus and catch the next one. Um,
yeah.
otherwise God knew what would have happened to me.
Yeah, that's it. It just would have persisted, and no one wants to ever be in a scenario where they're made to feel uncomfortable, in their skin.
Yeah.
It's horrible that some people think it's okay to attack another person, like how they look,
Hmm.
because you can't hide it. Like, you can't hide your blackness. I think it's, you know, there's a lot of education that needs to be given out to people on the topic of racism and
Yeah.
diversity and inclusion.
Yeah. And like, it just baffles me. Like,
Mm.
I don't understand what's wrong with this. Like,
Yeah.
it makes no sense. Because when I look at myself and I look at another, say my husband, for
Yeah.
me is like, yeah, just a bit of pigmentation, but literally
Yeah.
we're the same.
Exactly.
And I found that actually in Tallaght, the girls who would have been quite racist to me were the girls who wore a lot of fake tan.
Yeah.
So, and I,
Yeah. Exactly. Spend
I know,
thousands of
I
euro a
remember
year trying to look like
like
you.
me, and
Getting their
yet,
hair curled, getting tanned.
yeah,
All that stuff, lip injections, everything. Do you know what I mean?
right?
Like, it's crazy that.
Like, yeah. And I remember one girl calling me, her boyfriend who was black,
Mm,
had made a pass at me. Not my fault. And so she calls me
my God.
the N-word, you effing N-word, go back to your country. And she's
What?
with a black fella. Like,
For God's sake.
and I was just like,
So terrible.
he's black. Like, I
Yeah.
had to say it because I was really confused. And she also wore a lot of fake tan.
Yeah.
So
Of
it's the
course.
contradiction of you're dating a black man, you're wearing fake tan, and you're calling me the N-word. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
No, it is. It's insane.
Yeah,
We definitely need to. I think we need to shine a light on that. I think a lot of people would be kind of taken aback.
yeah,
Especially a lot of young people who are engaging in, black culture, or listening
yeah.
to hip hop, or listening
Black
to,
music.
to
Yeah,
black music, exactly. And then in the same vein are going out and saying, "Oh no, like I believe that, Ireland is for the Irish."
yeah,
that phrase where it's like Ireland is for white people,
yeah,
essentially. You know, I think a light should be shown on that and saying, "All right, well,
yeah,
you're saying this, but then you're doing this."
yeah,
So there's clearly a conflict there.
yeah.
Like you know,
Completely. And I know one person, she's not young, she's an older person, and loves black music, like does a lot of black music because she sings.
yeah,
And yet whenever I have said, for example, when Dalton Harris won X Factor, he was the first ever black male in the
mm,
category of male to win. The JLS had won, but it was a
yeah,
group, right?
yeah,
And so I just said, this is amazing. He's Jamaican and didn't have a lot of support
mm,
in the UK. So it's when he first arrived. So I just said it's amazing. And it's actually a good thing because it shows that British people were voting for talent rather than for who they knew.
yeah,
And this person went crazy. And she was like,
yeah,
why does it always have to be about color? And I was just like, but like it is.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
been made about race.
Of
So I'm
course.
just highlighting, and I wasn't even calling British people racist. I was saying how amazing it
Yeah,
was that he won,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
right? Like
Yeah,
he didn't know anyone, straight off, the boat or the plane
yeah.
from Jamaica, and he
Yeah,
won.
but that's
And
it. It adds to the story. Like, it just goes to show the struggles and, the trials and tribulations that that person had to go through, and
yeah,
they still came out on top. Like, they still won it. Like, so, I don't think there's any harm in, saying that. Oh, well, like, look what this person had to go through, but yet they still won.
yeah,
Instead of saying, oh, they only won because of that,
yeah.
that the fact that they were
And
black, or, a different
yeah.
color.
And it
That's how I
wasn't,
think it
I
should
don't
be.
believe he won because he was black. I just think people liked him, they connected with
Of
him,
course, yeah, yeah,
and I was given credit, but she got
yeah,
really
yeah,
annoyed, and
yeah.
that wasn't, yeah, and that wasn't the only thing. So now I'm just like, stop using our music born out of pain,
Mm,
music born out of, slavery, because they would do a lot of kind of blues and
mm,
gospel, and I'm just like,
yeah,
that music came out of pain.
yeah.
And if you're not going to hear my pain,
Yeah.
Don't sing my songs. Our songs. I'm sorry. It's
That's
just,
not, that's
yeah,
it. No, it is like it is that way.
yeah. So what did you study in college?
So I studied psychology,
Ooh,
which was quite an interesting topic. I did it through science. So
yeah,
I would have taken biology, chemistry, maths, and computer science in my first year.
yeah.
I then would have dropped two of those and taken up psychology. So I had psychology, biology, and chemistry.
Nice.
And then I had a choice of going down biology and chemistry or psychology, and I chose psychology. So
Wow.
that was it was an interesting degree. I studied in
Yeah.
Maynooth University, um, which is great. A really good university. Like
Which
I
university
love
did you say?
Maynooth
Okay, yeah, I
University.
love Maynooth.
So
Okay.
yeah, out in Kildare.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when I finished my degree, I went on to be student union president for two
Yeah.
years.
Wow.
And yeah, that was my time in Maynooth. It was excellent.
That's amazing. Black excellence. Well, it's hard. Well, because you're
Whatever.
mixed, so you're black and white excellence. That's amazing. Well done. And
No,
are you practicing as a psychologist now, or
no,
would
God,
you
no,
have
God,
to?
no, no.
Okay.
I need to go into I need to do a master's to specialize
Yeah.
in an area, and I'm still trying to figure out what that area would be.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm working in recruitment, which I suppose has its own diversity and inclusion,
Yeah.
woes
Issues.
as
Yeah.
well that need to be looked at. But
Hmm.
um, I definitely I can see myself doing something with psychology in the future. I'm
Yeah.
just not 100% sure what that is just yet. So
Yeah.
I
That's
reckon I'll pick that up
incredible.
soon.
So my sister is actually in her final year of psychology,
Excellent.
in Nottingham. I was gonna say Trent, but no, it's Nottingham.
Cool.
So, and then I'm thinking of doing another master's, or actually doing going straight into a PhD and doing like psychology, but I want to look at identity in Black families, especially when it's connected to religion and narcissism, because I feel
Oh,
like our culture, a lot of Black cultures and religion actually do a lot of damage to Black children growing up. So I want to look at that. So
right. Narcissism in terms of it increases narcissism or decreases narcissism.
increases it.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My thesis was on um dark traits in personality and
Really?
chronotypes. So basically what that means is whether you're a morning person, whether you're
Yeah.
a morning person or an evening person, and if that correlates with you having dark personality traits like narcissism,
Yeah.
psychopathy, Machiavellianism,
Wow.
being manipulative, um, that type of thing, whether they are linked,
And
so
what
that
did
that
you
was
find?
yeah, I found that there actually was a trend, and it was in line with previous studies that people who are like morning risers, that like they get up easier in the morning,
Hmm.
or that they basically their chronotype is that they're a morning person,
Yeah.
have less uh, dark personality traits than someone who is like a night owl. And
Yeah.
night owls are more likely to have dark personality traits like psychopathy or Machiavellianism or
Creatures of
narcissism.
the night.
Yeah, that's it. Like, do you know what I mean? You don't see horror movies starting in the morning, like, do you know what I mean?
Right?
Like, realistically. Um, so I definitely think that it does carry with the trends.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. I'd love to read that. That's incredible. I do think we need more Black people in psychology,
100%.
and studying these things out
Yeah,
in our cultures, but also
yeah.
in the effects of like racism and personality
100%. I
disorders.
absolutely
And
agree with that. I
yeah,
100% agree with that because what we were wanting to do for Black History Month was have a Black counselor come on and give a talk as to why the death of George Floyd was impacting people in Ireland. Do you know what I mean?
hmm,
And like why it was okay to feel very strong negative emotions about that incident.
yeah,
And then also, like, I wanted to speak to a Black psychologist about
yeah,
why is it affecting us this much, like, do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So like a counselor to deal with the actual trauma of it, and then a psychologist to talk about
The
why that
why.
trauma is there and what is causing it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like I fully agree with that. I definitely think there is a need for more Black psychologists.
Yeah.
And if you know any, please put me in touch with
Yeah,
them.
I know a lot in America.
Yeah,
Psychologists and social workers in America actually study counseling, so they do therapy. So I
brilliant.
would know quite a few of them over
Fantastic. Yeah,
there.
if you could put
So
me in
yeah,
touch, that'd be brilliant. Yeah, because
yeah.
I'd love to do some work with them around that.
Yeah, yeah, because it's really, really important. I think it's strange that the British Black History Month is now and the American one is in February.
Yeah,
Because I always forget, and for me, Black History Month is in February.
yeah,
But I'm glad that you reminded me. So poor people on
yeah.
my Instagram are gonna have to put up with me for that.
No, that's like I believe it or not, I actually have only discovered that right now. I thought Black History
What?
Month
What's
was
wrong with
October
you?
at all. I have no idea. Like look, I definitely have only like over the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years have really gotten into, you know, civil rights movements
Yeah,
and tackling racism.
yeah,
Up until then, I was just silent. I didn't really know how to cope with it. I didn't know
hmm,
where to go when I was
yeah,
facing this issue. Like, I would have dealt with it with a lot of anger
yeah,
and a lot of like frustration and maybe lashing out in other areas of my
yeah,
life. Whereas,
hmm,
now I know otherwise, and I'm able to like learn about it and learn about the history of it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, no, like I like the time scales of when you know Black History Month was. I thought it was around the October time
yeah,
before, but now I thought it was October because last I participated in Queen's University's Black History Month last year,
yeah,
um, and that's when I was building up for a court case,
yeah.
um, and yeah, I always just thought it was October. I didn't know the American one was in
Yeah,
February
that
more
one
so
is
than
in February, and
yeah,
they've had it for quite a long time.
of course, yeah,
So in my head, because I watch a lot of American stuff, like it's
yeah,
always been February, and then the British one has only kind of started over the last few years.
mm,
But I'm glad we're celebrating it as well,
absolutely.
because Black, British, and Irish and Black European history, is a bit different. So
Mm.
it's nice to mark it at a different time as well.
Absolutely, and another thing that we wanted to do with this history month that we're running on the Black and Irish page
Yeah,
is like a lot of the time the Black History Month can be centered around like American
yeah,
Black history, and
yeah.
we want it, which is of course a very key component of it. But we
Mhm.
also wanted to highlight like Black history in Africa and Black
Yeah,
history in Brazil,
yeah,
as well, and that's what we're doing.
yeah. And Black history in Brazil feels untold.
Mm,
I guess because we feel like they've mixed um, quite well. But when
mm,
I was there, I spent 4 months in Brazil in 2014,
right.
and it's still the Black people that are really, really poor. It's still the Black people that are
Yeah.
really drunk on the streets. It's still the Black people that most of them live in the favelas, and so
Yeah.
that would be quite interesting to look.
Absolutely. And if I can just plug something here, like
Yeah.
um, Dr. Edwin Joseph, who I uh, admire a lot and would follow a lot of her work, has recently published a book
Hmm.
on racial stratification in the Irish labour force
Yeah.
or the Irish labour market, and it talks about and gives statistics as to Black people being at the bottom of that stratification
Yeah.
of the labour market, and why that is because we have Black men
Yeah.
with PhDs in Dublin driving taxis and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
When they're it's human potential that we could tap into
Yeah.
and really help to progress our
Yeah.
society rather than
Yeah.
kind of shunning it and saying, oh no, well, like we can't bring these people in. So that's
Hmm.
definitely something that needs a lot more work on, I
Yeah,
think.
it's true. And actually, in America as well, I met a lot of Black men and Black women with PhDs, masters, and because they were immigrants or whatever, they were stuck doing, the cleaning jobs or
Mm,
driving a taxi or whatever. Yet again, more potential that's just not being tapped into, because of legal reasons, or your exotic name that's not, that that
Yeah.
people just don't want to hire you because they have these preconceived ideas of, and I also know what it's like, to be told that, you're not going to get this job because you're urban, and because you're
Wow.
female,
That's crazy.
and you're just like, but all I want to do is, and my heart is, I'm a child of the world in that, like, I love the world, I love traveling,
Yeah.
but my heart and passion is for Ireland, for the
Mm,
people of Ireland, and to be told that, in Ireland, like, it's heartbreaking, because you're just like, I
absolutely.
really, yeah, like, I love Irish people. I just
Mm,
want to help, but I guess it's the world we're living in, but we're
yeah.
making changes. And so how have your parents, being black and white, dealt with racism?
Mm,
Like, at home, did you always
sure.
feel like you could talk about it, or?
Um, not really.
Yeah.
In, so I'll give you, I suppose, a whistle-stop tour of my parents' relationship.
Okay.
Um, so I would have lived at home with both parents until about the age of 6, and that's
Okay.
when they got a divorce.
Okay.
So they would have been living separately in Ireland at the time.
Yeah.
That would have been for about 6 years until I was 12, and then my dad moved to France.
Okay.
And has subsequently passed away. So I
Oh.
never really had full access to, I suppose, the black part of my heritage,
Yeah.
and being able to access that and, understand it and like learn language and learn phrases or
Yeah.
travel
Yeah.
there or anything like that. And then I suppose I never really would have had the opportunity to sit down with my dad and talk about, an incident that had
Yeah.
happened and say,
Yeah.
well, like, look, this is how I'm feeling, and for him to be able to maybe console me or
Yeah.
or tell me how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Now, what I did take from how my dad interacted with racism, um, there's one very strong memory for me when I was walking back from a shop with my dad, and a number of young kids started like cycling around me, my brother, my sister, my dad on bikes, and they
Yeah.
started like just cycling around us, just shouting slurs at us, like just calling us names, like you're an N word, you're a monkey, you're this, that, and the other, you're a black such and such. Um, and my dad he just kept walking as if like nothing was happening, and obviously the three of us were like looking at each other like what are we gonna do? Like how are we gonna get out of this? Like are they gonna attack us or whatever? Um, and a couple of the people cycled off, and then one of them just kept going, kept going, kept going. Um, I remember my dad just looked at him and just said, "Thank you," smiled at him, and the kid on the bike, it was like he was shot. Like he just stopped and he was like, do you know what I mean? Like what? Like what? Like and the kid was like, "What you say?" And my dad was like, "Thank you." And for like, I remember that so distinctly. And like the kid cycled off on the bike and was like, "Oh, he said he hates you," to his friends, because they didn't know how to cope with it. Like, do you know what I mean? When you respond with dignity,
Yeah.
um, to people who are trying to pull you down,
Yeah.
they don't know how to deal with it. They don't know
Yeah.
how to cope with
Yeah.
you staying or taking a high position. So that is a position that I would always try and take now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Isn't it
sorry.
Michelle Obama that said, when they go low, we go high?
Hmm.
Um, and it's difficult though when people are frustrating you and you're just like, but I feel like a lot of people, black people, take the high road a lot,
Absolutely. Yeah.
or
Well,
you just smile and nod, and
yeah.
and um there's good in that you're not making the situation worse. But I
Yeah.
also think sometimes we internalize it and we don't
Yeah.
really talk about it. But that's such a lovely memory of your dad.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry for your loss.
No. Yeah. Like, it would have been like 10 years. Oh no, hold on. Yes, 9 years. Sorry, it's 10 years in February. My God.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even realize
Yeah.
um that it's been that long. But like, it's funny how those memories can be so strong in your mind and can stay with you forever. Like this would happen
Yeah.
then. like 2007 or 2008 or something that like would have
Yeah.
happened. Like, so,
Yeah.
it's not, Jesus, it would have been earlier than that. Maybe 2004, 2005,
Yeah.
because I would have been really young. So, yeah.
Yeah. But that was a defining moment. I think
Mm,
we remember those moments because they
mm,
define us somehow. Um,
yeah.
and so did you find, so I get too, let me know if I'm getting too personal,
No,
but your mom's family,
yeah.
were they okay with you guys or, um,
Yeah. So my mom would have had quite a small family. Like, it just would have been my mom, her sister, um, and then her parents. Now, my nanny on my mom's side would have passed away at quite a young age, but apparently, like, she doted over me and, like, loved me a
oh,
lot.
good.
Um, my granddad, after my nanny's death, would have struggled a lot. And I think, like, he's always been very fond of me, and like I've like never had a like troubling relationship with him or anything like that. And then my auntie Lisa, um, like she would have helped me a lot because, like,
Mhm.
she was an Irish teacher. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so she would have been like a great help for, like, when I was studying and stuff like that.
yeah.
Now, unfortunately, she had a brain tumor in 2005,
Oh,
and like, hasn't been the same since. She survived it, thank God, but, like,
yeah.
she's unable to walk and speak.
Oh,
Um, so, she's able to, like, whisper and stuff like that. So we're still able to have conversation. But one thing is, she fully remembers the
yeah.
Irish language, which is, I think, is incredible.
She's
Um,
probably really passionate about it.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah, no,
yeah.
she was, yeah, I remember that. But so they, like, never, like, would have had an issue. I thought, like, I would have been too, I suppose, young to, if they did have an issue. They definitely didn't. But, like, in terms of, like, extended family, um, we weren't really connected to them
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't have really, like, had, like, family get-togethers, or, like,
Yeah.
communions and confirmations is when I would have seen them. Um, so yeah, that, like, I've never had an issue with them, but it's not
Oh,
necessarily like I've felt like I've been, like, wholeheartedly welcomed as such. You know what I mean? Or they've made an
yeah.
effort to show that we understand that you have a different skin tone, and we're gonna, fight for that, or we're gonna make sure that
Yeah.
you're looked after, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I have two biracial kids and it's quite an interesting world and I'm trying because my initial thing actually no. So in the past I would have been more like because I wasn't woke.
Yeah,
So and I had this kind of colonial mentality that almost as if like white is better.
yeah,
And then now I'm at a point where I'm like, but black is amazing. So my
mm,
initial reaction now is just to want to kind of pour into their blackness and just be like, you're black, you're black, you're black, and you're amazing and you're handsome and
yeah,
all of this. Um, but I also realize that they are white as well. So they're fully black and they're
yeah,
fully white. And it's finding that blend. But
mm,
I find I'm not sure how well we're going to do with that because we've had family members when Elijah was born, he's our eldest, he's 4, and say, things along the line, that baby looks too Kenyan. Um, so,
wow,
yeah, so it's been quite an interesting time. And I'm trying to kind of, I guess for me now, I'm just like, because the world is going to see them as black, I'll
yeah,
probably do a lot of pouring into their blackness and into their identity as well
yeah.
as people. And
That's a
then,
huge thing. Yeah,
if their whiteness comes somehow and if they
yeah,
feel embraced in that, then great. But I'm going to do my best to do my part. But I think it
mm,
must be hard, like you said, noticing that people are white and people are black and there aren't many people like you who are brown.
identity was a huge struggle for me. Like,
Yeah.
it probably was, in terms of, like, looking back at my past. I think combating, or actually not combating, but, like, looking for my identity, and, like,
Yeah.
trying to find it and like identify with it and say, yes, this is me, like this is who I am, was a very, very tough thing. You know, like I would have been called black by the white kids, and I was known as the white boy by the black kids.
The black kids.
Yeah. So it was always like a kind of like you are different to us. So like, you know, you're not at the, you know, it was always a bottom of the pecking order kind of thing. And that's something that you need to kind of challenge within yourself and say, well, you know, who am I, and what do I want to do, and what do I want to represent, and stuff like that. And you know, finding that was great. I only maybe found in the last couple of years or so.
I know.
You know, I'm 26 now, and it was probably you know, only maybe after I was 20, do you know what I mean, I was able to say, well, you know, I'm not going to view myself as a mule anymore. I'm going to view myself as a hybrid of, you know, white and black. So I think that's definitely a way to look at it.
I think you've done great. I'm still like, in the last few years, I've also found my identity, and just, you know, from all the racial abuse, I think a lot of Black girls then end up wanting to be lighter skinned, you know, to have longer hair, and so embracing my natural hair. And I've never felt the need to bleach my skin, because I was like, this is how God made me. But there was always an element of feeling inferior when I was amongst white girls, because they were the standard of beauty and I wasn't, you know. So I think we're all trying to find ourselves somehow. But I'm really sorry that you've had to kind of get it from both sides. And I think, you know, that's really difficult. But I think you've done amazing. At 26, you've done really, really well, and you should be proud of yourself.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
So I'm going to end this by asking you, what would you say to white people?
What I would say to white people, I think one of the first things I would say is that it's not enough to be non-racist anymore. You have to be anti-racist. You know, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we all need to look out for one another. And it's important that they show racist people that it's absolutely not okay, and that it's actually that they are in the minority, and that racists are the true minority in Ireland, and that anti-racist people are take up that majority space. And just you know, I think a lot of white people, they want to be an ally, but maybe don't know how. There's many ways that you can find out how. All you need to do is send. You can send me a message, for example, and I'll tell you how. One main thing that people need to know is that not everyone needs to be an activist holding a megaphone. There are many ways that you can contribute to the cause of anti-racism. Whether that's making a poster or writing a speech that someone else can deliver, or you know, you can put your skills into anything. You can put your creativity, your organizational skills, your management skills. You can use that in order to combat racism in our society. And I definitely think that is it's going to be one of the biggest challenges for our generation and generations after us. In creating a more equal society, but it is absolutely necessary for the progression of the human race. Like you know, it's a huge piece. But that's on a very, I know it's gone very deep, but I think you know the main thing I would say is that you must be anti-racist. It's not enough to be non-racist anymore.
And just to add on to that, a girl reached out to me on Instagram 2 weeks ago, and she takes pictures of mothers who are breastfeeding. And for her way of being anti-racist is to take pictures of Black women as well, or Asian women, or whatever, because her page was just mostly white women. She calls herself the Belfast birth photography. So she takes pictures at birth and breastfeeding and whatever. So we connected in that way. She reached out to me, and last Monday, just gone, she took a picture of me and my son while I was nursing him. And for me, that is fighting racism, because she's invited me into her circle.
and
It just made
including
me
you. Yeah.
emotional.
Oh,
You know, in Northern Ireland, where
yeah.
you don't see many Black women,
Hmm.
and if you do, we're not well represented in healthcare or whatever.
Yeah, of
But
course. Yeah.
she, you know, she wasn't marching on the street. She didn't go on the news, but she
Mm,
did that. And that for me is just amazing. So being
yeah.
anti-racist does not mean that you're going to, you know, be holding the megaphone, like you said, but you're
Yeah.
doing whatever you're doing in your area to make Black people and other people of color to feel
Included. Yeah.
human and to feel included as
That's a
well.
huge point.
Yeah.
I love
So
that.
what would you say to Black people?
People, I'd say, be strong. The times that we're going through right now are incredibly tough. We're moving through one of the biggest civil rights movements in human history. So, you know, look after yourself, explore your heritage and your history as much as possible and be proud of it. Um, so that's it. I'd say, look after yourself and take care.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Leon. And
Of
thank
course.
you for coming onto the show.
No
This
problem.
was amazing. I'm just going to say a quick prayer to end it
Sure.
because it's rant and pray.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I fully, I talk to God every day. I'm
Good.
absolutely, I'm happy to be on.
Okay, well, let's pray. God, I just want to thank you for this moment. In history. I want to thank you that we are in a civil rights movement. I hadn't even looked at it like that. I thank you for the young men and women who are running Black and Irish and for all the work that they're doing, Lord. I thank you for the stories that are being featured for all our allies from every race, from our white friends to our Asian friends to everybody, Lord. I just want to thank you for that. But what I really want to thank you for is our identity and this recognition that we are of value and of worth, regardless of what has happened to us. And I speak identity into Leon's life. I speak identity into my life. And I speak identity into every person on this earth that has ever been hurt and broken, that they will stand and know that they are so special to the divine, to God, and because of that, they are special to themselves and they're special to the world. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen to that all the way.